You're watching the 2023 City of Detroit Political Overview with Khary Frazier of Detroit is Different and Malachi Barrett of Bridge Detroit. Can you provide some insights into the efforts to enhance public safety and community policing? As I do remember seeing a report about just, less violent crimes and similar to what's happening in the rising cost of rents across the country. A lot of violent crimes and murders are just going down across the country. But can you speak to this?
Yeah, so we are going to, I think I got to find the latest report now as we're basically at the end of the year. But a couple of weeks ago, the city was on track to hit its lowest number of homicides since 1960, something like that.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah. I think it's also important, too, to acknowledge that there were like 1 million more people living in the city in 1960.
I think that
the homicide rate better,
and that's where you get it back into the mean median mode thing of everything.
But the crime is certainly down, and I think that's something to celebrate for sure. And I think there's a lot of things that go into that. I don't know if it's entirely police response, if it's social factors like you're talking about. We're coming out of a pandemic, people aren't as desperate as maybe they. I mean, there's like a ton of different things that probably go into that. What I'm interested to see next year, we talked a little bit about the community violence intervention plan. The city put a lot of money into, for the first time really, these community organizations that work directly to interrupt violence in neighborhoods. So they hire essentially like social workers that have
the Shot Stopper program, basically.
That's what it's called. Yeah.
And connecting with that, Force Detroit, Alea, also New Era Detroit.
Are you in one of the CVI zones? Do you know?
I would imagine that this is definitely probably one of the communities. I haven't looked at the map, but I can only imagine just because.
I think we're in the area that Force Detroit might be covering. But so they are among a group of 6 community organizations that are getting funding from the city to address crime, and not by banging heads, knocking on doors, but by providing social services to people that are involved in gang violence and trying to interrupt things and give people resources and mentorship. And a lot of the stuff that I think we were hearing people wanted during the conversation on surveillance that happened the year prior, Shot Spotter.
Shot Spotter was this. Okay, so Shot Spotter was an audio technology that would basically hear a gunshot and within like a certain range, like let's say like 5 miles, it's like, oh, it was a gunshot right here at this house, and then the cops show up like, hey,
it was like an alert system.
Robot said that y'all was shooting, so I'm arresting somebody. Whereas Shot Stopper is more of a preventative measure of responding to violence that does exist, but also taking proactive, as they say, a pound of prevention is worth more than, what is it? An ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure.
Yeah. It's a data-informed effort, that's supposed to be, there will be extra money that these organizations can get if they lower the homicide and non-fatal shooting numbers within their area at a faster rate than the city. So I don't know, we're going to see how effective that is and whether that's a good way to measure it. I mean, it may not be the best way to kind of measure this work by specifically looking at the numbers going down, because we're talking about people's lives and the whole arc of somebody's life. And, obviously the goal is to reduce death and violence and shooting and those things. But I'm kind of curious, does the impact measure up to, the way that the city is measuring it? And do these organizations, do they feel like this is successful? They're being set up for success. How is that all going to go next year is really big. They got it kind of off the ground the last couple of months, but I don't think we're going to really see the impact until next year.
I definitely am interested in following that. So we close out with this one, even though Lord knows I got a Joe Louis Greenway question and other stuff, but we'll get to all of that as we pick up with public comment. Make sure you come back for public comment. It will be a thread that will run more than likely on Thursdays. But it'll pick up from the column that Malachi has weekly in Detroit City Council. So make sure you support Bridge Detroit. Make sure you support Malachi in his writing, just to stay on the pulse of what's happening with city government, and then me and him going like get in here and in the video dojo and probably bring some guests on. You know, we're gonna bring a couple folks on, you know, to talk some of these things out. So closing, the big question for a lot of people, this one, you know what I'm saying? The number one thing actually changing on a city level, a state level, and a national level.